Hello.
We're not going to hurt you, puppet.
Puppet.
Yeah, puppet.
Puppet. That's the way he says it every time.
Puppet.
What a great movie.
Seriously.
When are we doing that movie?
We need
Dude,
to.
we
We need to. We've talked about
Action,
it. far too
Action
many
Adventure
times.
Month. Action Adventure
Yes.
Month. And we do Pirates and we do Indiana
know,
Jones.
I have an amazing idea. We time it with the release of that video essay that I want to make. Have that month be the same month that video drops.
I love it.
Capitalize on it. That'd be really cool. I'm going to try and make some more progress on the script this week, but
Do it.
yeah.
Oh my God.
I've also thought about I had a really cool idea of maybe seeing if my friend who I collaborated with on my short film, if he'd be interested in filming something for it. Because I was like, man, I could do some really funny cinematics to cut in with the video essay. So I don't know. I'm cooking up some ideas for it.
I like it.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess I'm gonna go ahead and do the intro real quick. But first, James is first.
True.
It is. All right. Here we go. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Banter Fodder podcast. I'm your host, Drew, joined by my co-hosts Michael Hoover Dam and Jimmy Jam, the Walker, Texas Ranger Man. How are you guys doing today?
Pretty good.
So good. Go Gators.
Good.
Go Gators.
No.
Number 1 seed, baby.
Get that out of here. All right, we're looking for another co-host again.
I can't do anything. You guys get mad at me for everything.
I don't understand this particular thing.
March Madness, bro.
Yeah, that's true. I know what that is.
Apparently, I didn't know. Drew is a Duke fan.
No, I actually
is the word fan a loosely?
Yeah,
okay.
No. I thought about dabbling into some basketball sometime soon, and I'm like,
March Madness is a good time to dabble.
I might have to become a Duke fan. I watched a little bit of one of the games. It was actually not the second Duke versus Carolina game, but the first one that they had recently. I watched that and I saw them just absolutely stomp them, and I was like, all right, I see it. I see the vision.
You should be a Florida fan. We are taking bandwagon members.
I don't think so. Anyways, so let's go ahead and quickly talk about one highlight from recent watches that we had in the last week. So Michael, let's start with you.
Oh gosh, I actually have to choose something this time because
I think this is a horrible idea.
No, it's a great idea.
It's tough. It really is tough because I actually did watch stuff this week.
Yeah.
No, okay, so I keep bringing up Daredevil. I'm still doing that. Season 3 is incredible, but my wife and I finally watched I think it's 2021 Steven Spielberg West Side Story. And it was really freaking good. I didn't know what to expect. I've never seen anything. I've never seen any West Side Story. So this was my first exposure to it. I knew that it was a full-on musical. And on that level, I was so impressed with, honestly, from every technical level, this movie is incredible. Like the way this film is shot, the colors, the editing, the lighting, Steven Spielberg is just too good. It just doesn't even. It's just so ridiculous how good he is, and so he directed the crap out of this movie. I absolutely adored the first half of it. I felt like the second half, it was a little bit iffy on the story. I know it was an adaptation, and I know that, but I felt like there was a couple of choices characters made that I was like, that seems really weird and unearned. So I'm not going to go into details on it, but overall, though, really freaking loved it. I wasn't expecting the end to be as depressing as it was. But it's really, really good, and I really loved it. Kindle, not so much. If a movie ends in a depressing way, it ruins the whole movie for her. So that's just kind of what
many of my favorite movies.
I know, and I tried to describe like why she's wrong. But
you can't tell your wife that she's wrong.
No. It's like you can try, but that ain't going anywhere. But man, it was really, really good. So even if you just watch it for the technical, for the technical things alone, it is just like a masterclass in everything. I was just so impressed. This man can do it all. He's a master at everything. I don't understand.
And the movie has everything.
It kind of does. No, it's a very specific thing. This movie is a very specific thing, and I love that specific thing. So, yeah.
I also just love that like Spielberg finally got to direct a musical, because that's like one of his dreams. So
and on that level, dude, I can't stress enough. He just crushed it. Yeah. The camera movements, the costuming, obviously, like so many people go into this, not just Spielberg, but every production element of this they knocked it out of the park. Yeah. So, and music was great, of course. So I loved it.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a banger for sure. James, what about you?
Well, after our Rocky episode last week, I went ahead and watched a little movie called Rocky 2 through 4.
This is how you cheat. I love it.
It's a great movie. Really uneven, though. Really uneven.
The ending is not very good.
No. The last act of this movie was not what I wished it was.
I love it.
No, Rocky 1, honestly, like, that movie leaves me on such a high. Like, I love that first movie so much, and it makes me want to like start going to the gym and get active, and I'm like, yep, that's it. This is me now. This is my personality. Yep. And then instead, I just watch the rest of the series. I'm like, no, I'm just gonna sit on my couch and watch more. And so I'll take the time of just one movie, but I did go through these and just quick thoughts. Rocky 2 is amazing. It's not as good as the first one, but it's still amazing. I think it is a really, really compelling continuation for his character, and this idea of like what would happen if we took the Rocky that we fell in love with in Rocky 1, who has just been eking by for years. What if we just threw him into fame and stardom? What happens to that person? And I think it's really great. I think it's a really compelling drama. It continues that whole tone of the first one of being just as much a character drama, if not more so, than a sports movie. But the sport that is there is great. Rocky 3 is really, really fun and really good, and I do love it. It's not quite up to Rocky 1 and 2 to me, but it kind of also reaches this perfect balance between a character drama and like just rah sports movie, where like boxing is featured more heavily in it. There's more of the kind of almost anime kind of rivalry between like the two boxers. But Clubber Lang is my favorite antagonist of the series. Mr. T is and Jack Cornwall just said Mr. T is my favorite Rocky character. I know it's Clubber Lang, but it's always Mr. T. Listen, normally I'd agree with you, but Clubber Lang is such a cool name that he's Clubber Lang. I love Mr. T's delivery in it. He's got the most ferocious, mean, to the point, lasered in delivery of every line. Every line is always like this. It's always so fast, and it's directed, and it has like, he's just like, if that guy's looking at you and he's yelling, he's got a bone to pick with you. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
And there's a great confrontation with dialogue between him and Rocky. That's great. So I do think it does, though, still continue the character in really interesting ways. I think Rocky, like what it does where it takes Rocky as a character in 3 is really, again, compelling, where you're like, okay, so Rocky 2 ended with this. Where's the next interesting place to go with this character? And I think Rocky 3 goes in a really like compelling, interesting direction for him. And I'm like, oh wow, yeah, I do think that's a really compelling next step for him. And then comes Rocky 4, which I know is a big fan favorite. I feel like for every person who has number 1 as their favorite, there's another person who has number 4 as their favorite, and that depresses me to no end. I think Rocky 4 has a really potentially interesting first act, and then after that is just the whole movie is hijacked for just the moment of the times and whatnot. And like, listen, I could watch Rocky punch communists, that's fine, but like, it's not a movie. It doesn't become a movie. There's a robot in it that's hilariously stupid, like a literal like robot, like AI kind of robot in it, which tells you how far it's come from Rocky 1. Like it's so goofy.
It sounds so stupid.
Like it really is, and they're building up Ivan Drago like he's like this genetically modified superhuman, where they're like, he's punching with like 10 times the force of a regular human. It's like, oh my gosh, what happened to this franchise? So I find Rocky 4 incredibly disappointing. It does nothing interesting to Rocky as a character or to Adrian, who is mostly forgotten. So yeah, that's been my journey through Rocky. I do not like Rocky 4. I love Rocky 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Cool. That's good how you talked about one movie just then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, 3-act structure.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man. Yeah, I feel the same way about 2 and 3. I'm gonna rewatch 4 later this week. So I'm curious to see where I'll land on the rewatch, but I'm pretty worried, like just the way that you're talking about it. I'm like, maybe I won't like it as much as I did when I was a kid. So
listen, if you can ride that nostalgia, do it, because I would love to love Rocky 4.
Yeah. I tell you what, I did love Rocky 3 though on that rewatch. Super awesome. So yeah, that brings me to my pick, which is gonna be Rocky 3.
Nice. You stopped before the movie finished?
Do what?
It's Rocky 2 through 4.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Let me yeah. Well, actually no, I did stop before it finished. I haven't watched the third act yet. But yeah, Rocky 3 I think is super underrated. Obviously I think Rocky 2 is fantastic. Gave it 4.5 stars. It's awesome, and I would honestly love to cover it on the pod sometime. That would be a really fun discussion. But and also I actually kind of prefer 2's ending over 1 a little bit, just by a smidge.
Dude, listen,
but
I was like teary.
Oh yeah. No, it hits hard. But Rocky 3 I think is super underrated. Love the montage at the start of the film. It's just got some really interesting like editing throughout the whole film. Just a really good like pace and energy to the film. And the way that they just establish everything through that montage is awesome. You've got Eye of the Tiger, freaking incredible. And then I think that Stallone's direction is a significant step up from 2. And I think like his direction in 2 is good. Like it's a good looking film, but there's times where it's a little bit on the simpler side, but it doesn't take anything away from like how great I think the movie is. But Rocky 3, in terms of its direction, just feels like a significant step up. It's a lot more cinematic. There's some shots and like editing involved in this film that I was like, okay, that was actually like really creative, and I was not expecting that from you, Stallone, but go for it, dude. That's sick. So I really enjoyed that. Like just seeing him evolve as a filmmaker. And I also I don't know, I think like just overall it's a little underrated. Like just seeing where a lot of people are at on the film. Rated much lower than I would have expected, especially
Probably lower than Rocky 4, unfortunately.
probably, which is a shame, because I think that, you know, it's still, even though the drama is a little bit less than the first 2 films, I think that it still takes, like you were saying, the characters in interesting directions. I love what they're doing with Rocky, and the final fight, dude, holy crap, incredible. Not just in terms of like just the action, but like just the direction and the editing in that final fight is top tier stuff. So I'm a big fan. And I think I still, like, you know, have to rewatch 4, but I'm pretty sure 3 was my favorite growing up. So maybe I have a little bit more of a soft spot for it, but I think it's really good. I think it's underrated, and people are wrong for not thinking that it's awesome. Yeah.
Can't wait to watch it.
Dude,
I'm gonna be really excited when you do watch some of these.
I'm almost done with Daredevil, and then I can start watching some movies again.
you could have
I've been
started watching them before you started season 3, dude.
Bro, I'm in it, dude.
Yeah,
I'm just in it. Season 3 is incredible.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It might be better than 1. We'll see how it ends.
I hear a lot of people say it's better than 1, and I hear a lot of people say the season 3 finale is like their favorite episode. So,
whoa, I mean, I can't wait. I mean, I'm so into it. I can't believe how much of a step up it is from season 2. Like, it's a significant step up from season 2. Nice. And I like the Punisher stuff of season 2. That's all really freaking good.
Yes.
The hand stuff, I get why people didn't love that.
Yeah. Well, all right, let's go ahead and hop into our Moneyball discussion.
Let's go.
Yeah. So this only feels right that we're, you know, like finally doing a review of this, because I swear you've like talked about this film so many times before and like wanting to cover it on the podcast.
The whole time we've been doing this podcast, I've been talking about this movie, needing you guys to watch it.
Yeah, knowing that you know, it's one of your favorites. Definitely piqued my interest. I actually like didn't really like hear a lot about it before like hearing you talk about it. Like I knew of the name, but it was just like one of those films where I'm like, it exists, and I know Brad Pitt is in it. Somehow didn't know that Sorkin wrote it, which is crazy, because I feel like if I would have known that, then I would have already watched it. But I didn't. So yeah. What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say he technically rewrote the screenplay, I believe. So it's
Gotcha.
it was a script that he was asked to do a rewrite of, and he did it, and it's
okay.
I mean, it feels like a Sorkin movie.
Yeah.
So
Jack said Drew the Snob. No, I think that's James. But yeah.
You guys are both snobs, Drew. Come on.
Yeah, let's be real. Man, I think this film is pretty fantastic. I didn't really know what to expect from it. I obviously, you know, hearing it from you, seem like it was an elevated like sports film, which I'm always a fan of. You know, our Rocky discussion is proof of that. And yeah, it's great. Just immediately from the start of the film, I could tell like that we're in for something good. The way it's shot is fantastic. I can't remember the cinematographer's name, but
Wally Pfister.
Yes, Wally Pfister. That sounds really bad. But
Heck of a name.
yes. Heck of a cinematographer too, because he frequently collaborated with Christopher Nolan until The Dark Knight Rises. So I think from Memento until then, he worked on all of his films. So that's a pretty awesome run there. And you can really see it. There's some great shots in this film. James has one of those as his background right now, which man, that
Really
was
great shot.
That's right. That basically is the beginning of the movie.
This basically the establishing shot. So
and that's the shot I think of too. When I think of this movie, that's what I think of. It's just such a freaking great shot.
There's a lot of shots in the film that are very similar to it, where they have like a really good use of empty space.
Yeah.
The only thing that it like really reminded me of is the conversation, where there's a lot of like liminal space in the way that film is shot. And I was like, dude, I really vibe with this. And I feel like that gave it, I don't know, just a really interesting stylistic choice. I feel like it kind of fed into like this feeling of like, hey, this team is like on the brink of, you know, just being like decimated. Like it's like on the brink of being exterminated, you know. And so I don't know, I it was just a really interesting stylistic choice. I love the way that they spliced in the archival footage, and like it didn't feel like it was ham-fisted in. It flowed perfectly with the film. I think it was used really effectively. It also kept with the aesthetic of the film really well, so I was a huge fan of that. Man, there's, I don't know, the performances. So there's so much to love in this that it really took me by surprise in a lot of ways. So I'm a fan. I'm excited to dig a little bit deeper into it. James, what were your initial thoughts?
I thought it was really great. I really so sports is always something that like I've had like just peripheral interest in, of being like, I know that if I made time to like get invested, I would, I would love like investing in a team, caring about players, keeping up with things. Like I just know that this would be something that I would love. And of all the sports, baseball is the one that I feel like I would want to most get into, just because it as like the American pastime, the kind of like sit in the stand. It's a conversational sport, which I really love. But anyways,
strategy to it.
Yeah, and like it just, I've been to a few Rangers games, and there's just something fun about like, I mean, doing the full classic, like I'm up there with my popcorn and my hot dog, sitting with a friend, just talking about stuff in between pitches. Like it's just, it just, the vibe is like perfection. But anyways, so I'm already like, it's already easy for me to like really love sports movies, just because like it's just a good vibe. And like, I don't know, the idea of being able to frame a movie around like consecutive games and stuff just helps with momentum and all that. And like, and I love sports talk. Like I used to listen to like sports podcasts just because I like the sports talk and everything on. And this movie is all like, there's just so much good sports talk. There's so many great scenes, just like breaking down strategies and all of that. And like, and so I really I liked just the subject matter. It was really interesting, like hearing how embedded certain ideas were, like the newness of what they were doing, knowing that there's like a lot of actual real life historical significance to what's going on. and then all of that, like the substance of that all being something that I really liked on top of just phenomenal performances. All of that being wrapped up in just like a really, really well made film. Well, like great cinematography. I really liked it's like it does what you were saying, Drew, where you've got a lot of cool empty space and stuff. And I feel like the movie really leans into the idea of it being like about baseball, where like a baseball stadium just lends itself, if there's no crowd there, it just lends itself to like great usage of like small figures being dwarfed by huge spaces. Um and so, and then, but I also really like the weird kind, almost like documentarian style it has sometimes, where he goes handheld and like stuff's shifting in and out of focus and whatnot, and you feel like you're in the heat of like important stuff happening. And so yeah, I thought it was just I was super super solid. Yeah, liked it all around, and I knew I was gonna like it going into it because I've always heard that like it's always been spoken about and like in the higher tier level of like great sports films. So yeah, I thought it was great.
I'm so glad you guys liked it. It makes me so happy. I remember going to see this movie when it came out, which was 14 years ago somehow. And I've always loved sports since I was a kid. So this was I'm not the biggest baseball fan, but I follow it to a degree. I'm a half in, half out Braves fan. But I've always found particularly the GM side of sports to be really fascinating. How someone builds a team, and the in baseball in particular, it's really wild because in other sports, you have a cap. Teams can only spend a certain amount of money without going into the salary or into the luxury tax. So baseball, there is no such cap. And so you have teams like the Yankees and the Red Sox and all that, like the movie highlighted, that they'll spend so much money on these rosters, where the little guys, you saw the difference there in this movie. And I always find it's so interesting. And I thought the movie did such a great job of showing just the ins and outs of what a team like the Oakland A's would have had to go through in those days. And I love I think it did such a good job of explaining the analytics, because that stuff, the analytics and the equations and stuff, that stuff is really that can be really confusing. It's a lot of word vomiting potentially, but Aaron Sorkin, the way that he writes, it was every time that Jonah Hill was explaining something, I was like just eating it up like it was a dessert. It was I love listening to the rhythm of it and just listening to he delivered it well too, but just there were so many times where that it could have felt overly expositional, but they combined his excellent writing with Jonah Hill's great delivery, with a lot of the times when he's explaining it, also kind of those archival footage that Drew was talking about would go over Jonah Hill's words a lot. And I thought that was super effective and a really great way to make it not boring exposition. And I just loved that. And then on every other level, I think this movie just does such a great job of with on a technical perspective. The cinematography is incredible. I think the music is so good, and it's actually hardly used. There's not a ton of music in the movie. The original score is fantastic, but it's really minimal. The song from This Will Destroy You that they use a lot, I don't know if y'all know that song, what's it called? The Mighty Rio Grande. It's the song that would play. There's like a really specific song that would play, and it sounds like explosions in the sky almost. But anyway, it's a great song, and it plays at multiple points in the movie. It's almost the main theme of the movie. and the way that they use it to throughout and to make it build momentum is just so freaking good. It's one of my favorite songs used in a movie that isn't actually a score, because it played like a score. And
is that what plays whenever Chris Pratt hits his home run?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
See, TikTok has made that a humorous song for me. I was able to put that away for this because it's used in like in like I heard it and I'm like I'm picturing like really like intentionally funny like testimonials on TikTok and stuff.
Yeah, it's the boom, boom, boom. Yeah, it's just so good. But yeah, and then gosh, the performances. Brad Pitt's amazing in this movie. I think he's just so funny, and I love the way that they intertwined a lot of the. I love the way that they intertwined like the current story with the flashbacks, and that kind of showed why some of the reasons why he's really frustrated by he called it in the movie, he called same old good body nonsense, that the old scouts would talk about. And he got so frustrated at them when they talk like that. It's because that's what he heard. And when he was a player coming up, and I love them unpacking that as we go through the movie, still wrestling with a lot of that stuff, the demons and stuff like that from his past. And I think that they did such a good job of making him a deeper character than this could have easily been a movie where we're mostly focusing on the GM side of things, and there's not a lot of character work, but those flashbacks really help flesh him out a lot. And so I love that. We'll talk about in a lot of other stuff that I love. I just think this movie, for me, this is so much of what I want in a movie. I love, number one, it's got sports. Great. That's always a good start. It's a elevated sports movie with incredible music and cinematography, great images. It's also got great humor. To me, it's one of those things that for me, it is one of those that's a 5-star for me. That's not for a lot of people, but I think it's a lot of people give it, from what I've seen, at least 4 and 4.5 stars. So like, to me, it's one of those, like, I don't know what else this could have done to make me love it more. So it's so freaking good, and I'm excited to get into it more.
Yeah, same. So I obviously, like, right before watching it, when I like realized Sorkin rewrote the script, I was expecting like Social Network. What's the Steve? Is it Steve Jobs? That was his is called.
Yeah.
Steve
Okay.
Jobs
Yeah.
is him, yeah.
I was expecting like that level of like energy behind the film, and I was kind of shocked that it was like very, very like muted and like laid back for a Sorkin film. Like, obviously there's moments of high energy and everything, but like for the most part it feels very like intentionally like just slow and like sometimes like dull in the moments, which I think like really helped sell the like analytical side of sports,
and the dullness of the Oakland A's.
Yeah. Yes. So like a double whammy right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I wasn't expecting that at all, but I really love that. I actually think that in some ways it won't be like a rewatch where it's like, like a really breezy, like, oh yeah, there's a whole lot of like energy behind it and they're hitting home runs like every few minutes and stuff like that. It's not going to be like a breezy rewatch in that way, but I think because it's stylistically like a slower and quieter film, it'll help with rewatches and like finding like subtleties that I didn't notice before. Because I feel like there's a lot of subtlety in a lot of the performances, especially from Brad Pitt's character. So I don't know. I really, really love that about it. I think that's part of the reason why, like, when I was like telling y'all that I love this in our group chat, I was like, this really is an elevated sports film. Um, but one other thing I wanted to say real quick that I forgot to mention earlier. So I have like a bit of a like newfound perspective, or recently newfound perspective, on baseball now, because a few months ago, or well, for months, I was working on a documentary film about Bobby Richardson. And I spent many, many hours hearing Bob Costa's voice, and he's in this film. And
Yeah.
so
Nice.
I was like, hey, I know that guy. And I like, they
That's
didn't even
great.
show him, but I was like, I know that voice. So
Yeah.
I spent many hours hearing his voice, writing the transcript, scrubbing through footage for release stuff and everything. So there was like this level of respect that I had for this, that if I hadn't had that experience, I'm really curious how my watch would have been. But like, I have like such an appreciation now for baseball that I like never had before. I mean, baseball was like one of the sports that I didn't really like ever watch. The only thing that I ever really experienced was, going to some baseball games, which I think are really fun. Honestly, I love getting a hot dog or a corn dog or something like that. Just the vibes of baseball games when you're there in person are fun, especially if you're going with like a big group of friends and stuff. Trying your best to get onto the screen when they're doing stuff between like innings and everything. Like it's a fun vibe. So um getting that experience working on this documentary, seeing the ins and outs of baseball, seeing like all the different minds that go behind like building these teams. Like, it's not just the player, it's not just the athlete who's carrying the team. Like, there's so much more behind it. And I like learning how this like true story that this is based on, um or inspired by, how like that analytical mindset, data, mathematics, all that stuff went behind like making this team into what they are today, and like how that also affected the Red Sox and all these other teams. And I'd have to imagine that this has also affected, like every other sport too. Like,
In a major way.
yeah, just seeing how like sports are so like data driven now. It's really fascinating. And so I loved, I was eating all of that stuff up in this film. I love the way that they filmed the computer screen, and like had like all the like data entries and like different analytics. And
Me, the whole time, I'm just like, I don't know what any of this means, but it's a lot of numbers, so I'm assuming they're getting to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I love the way it looked, because it, I feel like when that happens in a lot of films, and I know this film takes place, in the early 2000s, but how many times do you watch a film in like, the 2010s, or like now, where they have like computer screens or phone screens, whatever it is, and it's just like, it doesn't look interesting. But I feel like the way that they filmed it in this, it really made it interesting, really like added some to the something like a little extra to the vibes. So I was a huge fan of that. And just learning how this dude from Yale, like, of all people, was the one who like helped shape this. I don't know. It was fun. I like it a lot. Maybe that's because I'm a weirdo and I like doing data entry stuff sometimes, but I could really get behind the analytical side of things. It never felt dull to me.
Yeah, you're right. It's gone. It's permeated like all sports pretty much at this point. And to the point where we've gotten to the point so many years later where it some teams lean into it kind of like too hard almost, it feels like. And honestly, like even as I'm watching this movie, it feels like they're leaning into it too hard. There because there really needs to be a balance, but I think they do such a great job in this movie of making you like you're rooting for Billy, you're rooting for this plan to work. And so you're like, come on, Art, you jerk, play the team Billy has assembled. But then when Art is talking, you're like, well, yeah, I get why he wants a first baseman who plays first base. Yeah. you really need people who are good at what they do to be a good team. And so when Billy trades Pena, the only first baseman on the team, I totally understand. They did such a good job of like making you understand, Art, the manager, and also Billy's perspective. Like, yeah, but if you don't play the team like Billy intended for you to play it, then it's all gonna suck. You're all gonna lose your jobs. And so I think they did such a good job of making you understand from the hardened old heads from baseball who and a lot of times it feels like the movie wants to paint them as relics, and a lot of times the things are saying, like, who cares like when they're talking, when the scouts are talking about like how he's dating a 7 at best, like as if that has anything to do with anything. Or like he's got a great swing, his body, he's got a real baseball player's body, like all this stuff that's like, who cares? Like, what are you even talking about?
Yeah.
But at the same time, they also do a great job of like, yeah, but there are things in baseball that do matter. And it feels like Billy is just throwing all of those out the window, and it feels wrong. But also, like, when they go on that streak, it's like, was Billy right? Like, it's really, really fascinating. They do a great job of kind of pulling you both ways a bit, I think.
Yeah. And not even just between like those two perspectives, but also like the general public, and like, like all these reporters, like so many people were against Billy and his whole plan. And so they do such a good job of that. And then also like Billy is kind of an a-hole.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so but at the same time it's like you still want to root for him because he's got a vision to not just make this a team that's passable, but like a team that makes its way to the championship. Yeah, so it does such a good job of balancing that.
Yeah, I kind of feel torn on like that part of the subject of the movie, because I fully buy into the whole like Billy is my protagonist. I want good things for Billy. I like in an argument, I want to be in Billy's corner, all of that. And I'm like, yeah, I'm bought in. But I feel like there are a lot of times where I had the thought of like, boy, all it takes is like a tonal shift, just a tonal shift, and Billy and Pete are prime candidates for the villains of sports movies, where you've got the other people being like, listen, you can't bring your college kids and their newfangled data into this, this sport that's all about instinct and that human touch and all of that. I'm like, everything about this screams for Billy to be the bad guy of the situation.
Yeah,
because it is all data. Like you could see, like I could picture a different movie where Billy comes in or where Pete walks in as the most snobbish, obnoxious, like, yes, I'm from Yale and you meatheads wouldn't like, it's just like that kind of thing. you got the old guard being like, no, there's a way that baseball is played. You can't, these aren't just numbers on a board. And part of me does, there were times where I wish art specifically wasn't quite as framed. So, and like he is antagonistic, obviously, and he needs to be, they're butting heads. But I couldn't tell how much of my sympathy for Art's position was just because of my own personal preference for the kind of the romanticism of the human touch of it, and how much of it was the movie kind of letting him give points, because I do feel like most of their scenes together, the movie is like without question on Billy's side. And there are times where I kind of wish that it didn't make the other people seem like such a group of like old fogies who don't know no better. But I still like, I did think that like I didn't think about it in terms of a fault, but I did think about it just in terms of an interesting point of where like it's a really like kind of almost fresh take to be like, what if the people coming in and trying to change the game with all of this were like the good guys instead of the, because I mean, part of what they did was open up, a shot for a lot of people who wouldn't get it. So it's clearly easy to paint that as like a good thing for the sport. Like there are people who do have talents that are not being recognized because they don't fit into the nice patterns of the way it was done.
Yeah.
But there were just a couple times where I'm like, I wish that these guys weren't written quite so much of like, well, we do this because it's the way it was done, and a bit more of like, well, this is X, Y, and Z are my reasons, and I'm not combating you just because it's the new thing, but blah, blah, blah. And, but I mean, I can't complain too much because the scenes that we do get at the confrontations tend to be really, really great. And I freaking love Philip Seymour Hoffman so much.
He's so good. He's so good. I think too, like, I get what you're saying. I kind of feel like his Billy Bean's assholeness is what kind of balances out the rest of it to me, because like, yeah, these guys sound a little bit like these, old fogies with these, like holding on, clinging to the past and stuff. And there are things that they're saying that absolutely should be pointed out that way. But I feel like their interactions with Billy, like there's a part where he's talking to Art and he's like, hold on, I had it pulled up just a second ago. There's that line about the girlfriend that I was talking about. Dang. Anyway, I can't find it now. But there was the part where he's talking about trading Pena away. He's like, he's not not even that. It was just when Pena was playing instead of Chris Pratt. And Art was like, not only is Pena the best first baseman we have, he is the only first baseman we have. And then he's Art said something like, what about fielding? And Billy says, I don't care about fielding. And Art was like, well, I do. And to me, like Billy's ridiculous response there kind of like balanced out Art to me. And in a way it's like, I get it, Art, dude. Like to me, there's so much about the way that Billy just talks to these people that it makes me kind of a little bit on their side enough. You know what I mean?
That line whenever he first shows up with his 3 picks and he's like, this is not a discussion. What are we discussing? I said it's not a discussion.
Who's Fabio?
Yeah.
That line kills me. Yeah. That scene to me is one of my favorite scenes of the entire movie.
You can... It might not... Drew brought up that it feels a little bit slower paced. But you feel the Aaron Sorkin punch up quite a bit. I also do think, though, in the dialogue of all the behind the scenes stuff. And there were some lines where I'm like, I just like I had to pause the movie and like copy and paste. I'm like, that's a good one. There is a 0% chance that was in the script before Sorkin came along.
Yeah.
But like in that scene, whenever he's given his names and he's like, Scott Hadberg, who? Exactly. Sounds like an Oakland A already. That line was incredible.
Yeah.
But there were so many of those like really good and like, boy, Brad Pitt is like, he's become truly like one of my favorite actors ever. I'm a very late Brad Pitt appreciator, but I was late to the game, but now that I'm here, I'm like, holy crap, I think he might be one of the best actors in the history of film.
It just seems like so effortless for him.
Yeah. The way he just like goes through Sorkin dialogue is one of my favorites. Is whenever they're there to recruit Scott, and he's like, "It's not that." Or he's telling him, he's like, "I want you to be first base." He's like, "It's not that hard. Tell him it's incredibly hard. But all things worth doing are." Just like the way he takes it and runs, or the whole he's telling them their new strategy, and he's like, "All right, no more stealing, but that's what you pay me to do." No, I pay you to get on first, not to get out at second. Just like
it's so good. But like even later in the scene where he's talking, where he said, "It's incredibly hard," and I think Chris Pratt said, "What about the fans?" And he's like, "Sure, why don't we just get one of them?"
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, another scene that like has that same energy. Whenever he's on the phone with like 3 different like GMs or however many it was, and he would be like, "Okay, well, what about this guy? Like, come on, like let's trade for this guy or whatever." And like Jonah Hill's character is like pulling up the names, and they like pick one, and then he's like, "Okay, well, what about this guy?" And then they're like, they're like, I like him. And he's like, "No, you don't like him. You don't even know who he is." And then he'll go and call the next guy, and like they'll say almost the same exact thing. He's like, "No, you don't know who he is. You don't like him." And like, I don't know. There's so much consistency in just the way that he talks with people. It's so funny. But at the same time, you're like, dude, this man has so much ego.
I think that scene might be my favorite in the whole movie. The Brad Pitt is everything in that scene, because it's not obviously it is edited, but it almost feels like a one take. And the way that he goes from call to call, and like between calls, he like shoveling food into his mouth like he is throughout the entire movie, which he does in most of his movies. But just the rate at which he's talking, again, this to me was a Sorkin scene. But just like the dealing between agents and calling and other GMs calling back and forth in this like triangle, like trying to backdoor this deal with behind another guy's back and all this, like, and their reaction whenever when it works and it goes through, and like how satisfying it was to me. Like that is one of the most satisfying scenes of the movie, because just all of this stuff is so fascinating to me, and they brought it honestly to normies, to people who don't really care about sports at all. This is the boring side of sports. This is the front office stuff is not interesting, but they made that drama. They made that fun somehow. And it was so upbeat and fun. And I just think that scene to me kind of encompasses everything I love about this movie and Sorkin scripts in general.
Yeah.
It felt like a West Wing scene, really.
Well, there was one scene where I thought of West Wing when he's decided to like be talking to the players more, and he's like, "Hey, great hitting tonight," and blah blah blah. He's like, "Yeah, you gotta quit. You gotta be more patient on those. Quit swinging for everyone." And it just kind of follows him as he like gives a quick word to everybody, and then it ends with him staring at the TV through the window into Pete's office and what. I saw that and I was like, there's the walk and talk.
I love the scene too where he like gets real with David Justice. Like,
yeah,
you're paying me to blah blah. No, the Yankees are paying the Yankees are paying half your salary just to get you off their team, basically.
Yeah.
Like, and I that conversation to me was so well handled. Yeah, all of this, inside baseball, they call it. All of this inside baseball, I think it was made into a very palatable way for us to consume it. And I think it made it, to me, a really rewatchable film. Like, I've seen this movie at least 15 times, I think. Like, I probably rewatch it once a year, and it came out in 2011. So maybe not every year, but close. And so it does. And I think it's because of how much fun they make this stuff, and how the dialogue is just there's so much life in it, and Brad Pitt brings it and Jonah Hill bring it so much more life. And so it just kind of all works all as a whole together so freaking well.
Yeah. A lot of the other cast is really good too. Earlier, Brian said, "Is this Chris Pratt's best dramatic performance in a non-comedy or superhero film?" I haven't seen what is it, Zero Dark 30, so I can't speak on that. But I honestly could argue that this might be his best dramatic performance. I thought he was really good, and like I love the interaction that he has. Like, we already mentioned some of it whenever Billy visits him at his house, but like just like even Chris Pratt handling like Sorkin dialogue, I thought it was really good.
Yeah, he bring like I'm worried that like when he got cast and everything there for like that window of like a few years, I'm worried that the narrative of like the Chris Pratt's oversaturation has done damage to like his career. And it makes me sad because I was looking at him on Letterboxd and I'm like 2011 Moneyball, 2012 Zero Dark 30, 2013 Her. Like Chris Pratt, I think, and I also think like in Infinity War and in a lot of the ones that he's in, I think he by far puts in the best performance in Infinity War. I want him
Guardians
back in
3 too.
Yeah.
He's great in all the
Guardians 2 is like my least favorite, and he's got some phenomenal dramatic stuff in that.
Yeah.
He really does.
I think he's one of the just pure acting wise, he's one of the highlights in that, and I would love for him to come away from your what recently just released, what's that called? Electric State. Come back from Electric State and return to like the Moneyballs and the Hers of film.
Oof.
That'd be great, because I think whenever he's doing like legit dramatic stuff, he's got a really convincing, just kind of like everyman feel to him, where like Brad Pitt is just working hand in hand with Sorkin. And I don't mean this as an insult, because like I said, I think Brad Pitt is phenomenal here. This is like absolutely perfect, where he feels like he is a guy spitting Sorkin dialogue, and it's meant to feel that way, and it's awesome. But I feel like Chris Pratt, his character just feels like he's just a dude, you know.
Mm-hmm.
He's just a dude out there being a dude, being a baseball player, you know.
Yeah.
And it feels very like realistic, and so I thought he's really good in it too. Yeah.
I love the scene where he's talking to David Justice, and David's like, "What's your biggest fear?" He's like, "The ball being hit in my general direction." He's like, "No, really, that's what I'm afraid of." Well, good luck with that. But yeah, I'm with you. I think this might be his best performance that I can remember for sure. Almost as good as Jurassic World. But
dude, actually, yeah, Jurassic World is easily his best.
I like him in those movies, but
I do too.
They're by no means his best performances. But he's super fun in those. He's kind of the heart. He's kind of the heart of this movie in a lot of ways, I feel like, because his character kind of embodies what so many of the characters were. Just kind of, they called it, it's like an island of misfit toys. A lot of these players were cast aside because they were either, injuries sidelined their career, or they threw funny, or they looked funny, or whatever. That pitcher that threw like his hand almost hitting the ground.
He's the baseball pitcher equivalent of Ezra Miller as a runner.
Nice, dude.
That's hilarious.
What was Zack Snyder cooking, man?
But I think that Chris Pratt kind of brings us into the psyche of what a lot of those guys must have been feeling, and seeing him ultimately, dude, that scene where the game seemed like it was out of hand in their favor, and then everything was going wrong, and it looked like they were going to lose the game, and the build up to Chris Pratt going in and hit. I'm getting chills just thinking about it. Like that hit, and Chris Pratt's reaction to it and all that. It really felt like a genuine, like, joyful moment. And
it's the sport moment, it's a moment in the sports movies where you're like, yes,
that was the sports moment for this movie. And then less than 5 minutes later, they lose the last game of the season. But by the way, too, that there's something about the editing of that scene that I love. As soon as Chris Pratt as the ball hits the bat, the cut to Brad Pitt's face as he looks up. I don't know.
That was cool. Yeah,
there's something about that, like, it just gives me chills. Like, and watching Brad Pitt, watching Billy Bean celebrating from the locker room, it just, I don't know, man. That scene really, that's what I love. That's the scene that they put in because everyone loves that part of sports movies. Like, they had to have something like that. And to me, that them winning the streak, going on that streak and getting it in that way, is just like, God, that's drama. And it just gives me, like, even describing it in the terrible way I just did, it gives me chills, like, thinking about it. And yeah, I think, and Chris Pratt, to me, like, he had a lot to do with that. Just the look on his face as he's rounding those bases. I don't know. It's great. He did such a good job in it.
Yeah.
I also like the way a lot of, like, the baseball stuff is shot. There's one particular thing that's done that I thought was really cool, where it kind of looks like they're shooting it on, like, a sound stage, where there are moments where it doesn't look like they're just shooting out in the actual baseball field. It's just where they darken everything else around it except for home plate, and everybody who's there. And it kind of feels like that kind of soundstagey vibe, but intentional.
Yeah.
So there's just something about, like, giving us those brief moments of, like, really heightened style to it that I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
It doesn't really clash, but it contrasts with the documentary, like the kind of documentary style of it, where it's like sometimes we're all over the place with our camera, like we're just trying to keep up with the trades and stuff, and then we're almost doing this, like, Raging Bull type, like, blacking everything out and just really emphasizing, like, this moment in a cool, heightened way. I thought that was a cool another one of those decisions that just kind of separates it from a typical kind of sport movie.
Yeah, I like that it overall has, like, a naturalistic look and feel to it, but when those creative, like, really creative choices happen, like, it feels so satisfying. They feel like super intentional because they are, and they're used so effectively. And I love that they, like, actually do that in this film, because there's so many sports films that you'll watch and, like, yeah, it'll be inspiring, and it'll get you feeling feels because of the camaraderie, and they finally won the big game and stuff like that. But a lot of times sports movies just they have like simple direction, or they're shot simply, and this isn't that way. And I think it makes the baseball scenes even more special, because they don't happen often in this film, since we're mostly focusing on the boring office stuff, quote unquote boring,
Right.
but so it to me it makes those moments just hit even harder. Like, every time it's like a home run,
Like a home run.
Yeah. Oh man.
What did y'all think of I forgot another cast member that I forgot was in this is Robin Wright.
Oh yeah.
And I love her. She has a small role, but I anytime she pops up, I always I'm like, Robin Wright, I love you.
Yeah.
What?
And speaking of her, well, not her, Robin Wright, but her the movie. Spike Jonze is also in it.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know that person.
He directed her and
Yeah,
Where the Wild Things Are.
Oh, okay. What's he
adaptation?
Who is he in this?
He's the new husband. He's Robin Wright's husband.
Okay.
Yeah. Which that made me laugh, because just the way he was talking and everything, like it did not even sound like him. It was so freaking funny.
He is
Those
so
sandals.
the sandals and the way that he talks, and just like the awkward when he tries to talk about Giambi, he's like, so Giambi's traded, huh? And Robin Wright's like, it's Giambi. He's such a what's the word? I don't know. He's such a loser. Not really. He's actually seems very rich. But the awkward dynamic between him and Brad Pitt is really, really funny.
Her mother and I will discuss that.
And the way he just sits back after he says this, like,
yeah.
So
there's some of the awkward moments in that scene are so like believable though.
Yes.
Like the moment where I'm like, I'm fairly certain I've seen that play out in real life, is like, not that the particular thing, but just whenever it's clear that everybody's run out of everything they have to say, and you just sit there for a little bit and you search for the first question you could think of that sounds like reasonable in the moment. She's like, where'd she say she was? Oh yeah, she's just coming up there. I called her on her. It's just like, and that's after like 15 seconds of like nothing, and it's like, where'd she say she was gonna be again? It's just like you're like,
cell phone.
Yeah.
That seems like a big parenting decision.
Oh man, that conversation happening in 2002. I'm pretty sure he'd be even more pissed right now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But
TikTok.
Yeah.
Oh man.
What did y'all think of the flashbacks of like the young Brad Pitt, young Billy Bean and stuff?
I thought they were really well done. And what I liked about them is, one, what you said, which is like, he's got his own frustrations with the old way of doing things. And he kind of even voices that, where you're like, I know how you do this. You show up and you say, you got like, you know it when you know it, and I know it. And he's like, that's BS.
But
you can't know. Yeah. Like, I love the way he said that.
Yeah.
You don't.
So good.
And like all of his own personal, and like, you pull out his history, and that scene can play out because he's got a good point, but you hear his own frustration at the recruiters that got him when he says, but you can't tell that person, so I thought that was really good. And a moment that really endeared me a lot to him early on is when he's on the phone with Pete and he's asking, would you draft me? And he's like, cut the crap. Would you draft me first round?
Gotta take you in the ninth.
Yeah. And what made me really respect him was, in that moment, he was immediately able to swallow his pride and realize that this guy really has something to him.
Yeah.
So just that moment of him knowing him and what he turned down for his career and the decade of frustration as a player. And then to hear from this guy that like right then in that moment that everybody was ready to sign you, I would have taken you in the 9th round. And for him to hear that while in the midst of like struggling with his own like history and to just kind of laugh and be like, I just bought you, you know, like I want you to
Tack
come
your
and help
bags,
me.
Pete.
Yeah. That was kind of an early endearing moment for him to me, where it's like, you mean business right now, and you respect the honesty of that statement.
Yeah, because even though like, you know, he's an a-hole a lot of the times, like having someone, I think like, you know, he's so blunt himself, so having someone like reach to his level, like I really like that he showed that sign of respect. I feel like in a lot of movies when you have a character like this, if someone puts them in their place, like they're gonna like lash back, you know. But it was refreshing seeing him just kind of take that and find some respect in it.
And I was hoping that's how he would take it too, where you're like, you kind of hope that he's at the point now to where like he's ready to hear that, you know, to be able to know that that's not what they're doing now.
But yeah, I really liked the flashbacks as well. I think they're like when it first started happening, like I didn't realize it was a flashback at first. And it's shot in a different way. Like the lighting and the camera placement is very different than like the rest of the film, which I thought was like an interesting creative choice. I also loved, you know, the way that they cut between things while they were having the conversation there. And it really, like, not only did, you know, doing like taking that offer, not only did it not work out for him, but you know, the final you know, salt in the wound, I guess, is like, you know, he had this scholarship, you know, he had a full ride to go to college, and he could have had, you know, maybe a better life, or, you know, it's just something that he was more proud of instead of like being a failure. And so for him to take that offer, like honestly, like in a lot of ways, I'm kind of surprised that he even stuck around in baseball. Feel like
every time it said like 1988, I'm like, well, we're still going.
Yeah, it's kind of shocking because it feels like baseball was against him in a lot of ways, and so for him to still be there, it's hard
to not be romantic about baseball.
Exactly.
He loves baseball, dude. Like, even though he's like trying to change the game, you know, there's still something about baseball, you know. Like I love that scene where even it was near the end of the movie, but when Jonah Hill's character is showing him that video of the really big guy that hit the home run and didn't know it. And I love, I think he said it in that moment, but he was like, it's hard not to be romantic about baseball. He said it multiple times in the movie, but he repeated it at that point. Yeah. And there's some, it's like, I agree with him. Like, even as someone who's not like a big baseball fan, like I get what he means by that. There is something about baseball that does like kind of pull you in. And man, when you spend your whole life doing something, you will stay in it however you can. And if he feels like, I love that he stayed. I think he's the GM to this day of that
Really?
team. Although I think, was it last year? I think they moved out of Oakland. Like all teams, Golden State Warriors were in Oakland and they moved out. The Raiders moved to Las Vegas. Poor Oakland's lost all their teams. It's really sad. It really is sad. But I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe he's still the GM for that team. So it's really crazy, especially with the offer he got at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
I was really good because I knew nothing about any of this, obviously, and so I was like, I don't know if he's about to take it. I don't know how this turns out. I kind of love that he didn't.
Yeah, I do too.
But to me, like, as somebody who's not super invested into any sports beyond just like watching it with friends and really enjoying it when I'm with friends and just wishing that there were 30 hours in the day instead of 24 so I could like get invested in it. There's a reason why, like, just when you think of like what's the most like just kind of all American kind of thing, it's like cherry pie or apple pie and baseball. You know, like that's
no, definitely cherry pie, dude.
Cherry pie.
Damn fine cup of coffee.
Yeah. But like apple pie and baseball and just like that's what it is. And honestly, one of the shots that made me be like, yeah, part of this is why like I love the idea of baseball is when he's pulling into Fenway Park and it just starts where you're looking at Fenway Park, like the iconic sign, and it just, you see the outside of the stadium and then it pans down and you realize like the stadium is right there in the city. Like there's the stadium, the sidewalk, the road, like storefronts. Like the stadium is like built into, you're gonna like drive basically under portions of it there. It looks like that stadium looks so iconic and like it's literally built into the city. The city sidewalks. It's not, because like the Ranger Stadium here or the Cowboy Stadium here, like for like we drive out, we have to drive kind of out into the big parking lot and everything. And there is just something about the idea that like literally the same sidewalk that had like the whatever store that I just walked into, I'm going to stay on the sidewalk and I'm going to turn right into Fenway Park. And like, just seeing that integrated, you're like, I can't imagine just being there and hearing like the smack of the ball off the bat, just like walking out and about in my day and whatnot. There's that kind of being so integral to the city itself that you're like, I get why people are so romantic about this sport. It just seems, I don't know, like it's part of the language of the city.
Yeah. Very, very much like American culture. Like how many times you think like those baseballs have hit like cars or like people like, walking and stuff like that.
You know what's wild? I think
sorry, images in my
Simon
head.
Birch all the time.
We're like, I'm picturing like how epic that moment is from inside the stadium or on TV. Home run, and outside it's just bunk. Oh,
oh man.
Sorry. Go ahead, James.
This is unrelated to the movie, but I want to say that baseball is now like a bigger sport in Japan than it is America, which is like interesting and also kind of like sad to me because it's been on like a major decline.
It has here. Football and basketball are really, it's just mainly football. Basketball's declined quite a bit as well. But it's they've done a few things I think in recent years to kind of try to pique interest again.
They've changed the clock, I know, to try to shorten run times,
stuff like that. Which shortens games ultimately by a little bit, which I think could be good. I don't care if I'm watching a game, I'm going to watch the game, but yeah, I think they're trying to do stuff like that, but ultimately baseball is just so slow paced, and I don't know if it's never gonna grab America like it used to.
No.
Which is sad because that's the thing that I love about it. Of just
Yeah,
like
I agree.
it's a sport that facilitates hanging out so well.
I agree.
Yeah.
You can talk in between pitches, and also like it's slow enough where you can like think, what would I do here? Like
Yeah.
strategy wise, and yeah, it's great. But like with football, it's also it's slower too. It's not like basketball's crazy, dude.
Yeah,
Basketball, like
if you blink, you'll
oh.
miss like something
Yeah,
dope happening in basketball.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But but football is kind of just that perfect middle ground, I think, for America.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, I think back to the movie. I think I do love the idea of him saying multiple times in the movie. It's hard not to be romantic about baseball and seeing him get wrapped up in it, and like I love that aspect of his character, that even through the kind of trauma that he has from his past and with it, and even from the I mean, he is what they call a draft bust. He was a bust in the league, and because he was what people would call a guarantee, like as close to a guarantee as you can be, and it didn't pan out.
Yeah.
And so for him to be that and have that as a part of his story and to still love the game, I think that is really endearing for him. That's yes, he's an asshole. I love that he's an asshole. Yes, he is. But there's that side of him that's like ultimately like it endears him a lot to you just by knowing like how much he really loves this game. But also how much he's not like, hey, he's like, we're gonna change the game though. I love the game. We're gonna change it,
Yeah.
So
He has enough respect for it that his like desire to change it doesn't. I feel like that's why, like when we were talking about earlier, how he's got all the makings to be the villain of the sports movie. But I think that's why ultimately, like, you can't really vilify him for changing the game, because he has so much respect for it. He still like deeply loves it. Yeah. I also just I love that aspect of like technology advancing like sports, and like the sense of like danger that comes behind it, or like the pushback that people have. And like I remember in a class that I had, I don't even remember what class it was, but last year when I was still in school, I took a class and we had to like learn about the way that like Amazon's cloud is being used in like a lot of the major sports now, like the AWS. I can't remember what that stands for, but it's Amazon's cloud. And like in football, like on the actual balls themselves, in the pads for like the shoulder pads, like all the different like gear that the players wear, their helmets, they have these chips in them that uses the Amazon cloud to get like super accurate and refined statistics for everything that's like going on during the games. So like just the
crazy.
depth that like goes behind sports, not just in the strategy and the athletics and the physical prowess that's behind the athletes, but every single interworking part that happens, on all levels behind the scenes, I think is just super fascinating. It gives me even more respect for sports. Which is like, I'm with James. Like I do, like I would like to get into sports if I had like the time to do it. There's a while where I was like pretty consistently watching Manchester United, which if Jack is still in the chat, oh man, what a ride we've had the last year, year and a half or so. But it's hard to like keep up, and especially with football, like especially if you're watching the Premier League. it's so hard to keep up with it since they have games,
Yeah.
on European time. So, but I don't know. I have a lot of respect for sports, and I have a lot of respect for baseball, especially just with it being a part of our culture. Because a lot of people say like, oh, like America doesn't have culture, and in some ways, like I can agree with that. But like we do have baseball, we do have this, we do have that, we have burgers, we have no, I was kidding.
No, you're not kidding. I love burgers.
Burgers are 100% a part of American culture.
Yeah. No, 100%. But we got McDonald's.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. There's a lot to respect about baseball. Especially like if you look at the history of it, like over the decades, and how it was so impactful, especially like after World War II and like during World War II, and like offering a lot of like hope for like younger people and stuff. There's a lot of interesting history there.
And just escape.
Yeah.
It's an escape too.
100%.
This is, I don't really have a segue into this.
That was great. Great segue.
That's what I have on that. If I don't have it, there's no real segue. So one thing, and I think I need a rewatch to figure out how much weight I have on this. Because I could tell this is definitely a movie that I would like to rewatch. I was like halfway through, I was like, I'm showing my dad Moneyball. My dad would love this.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I feel like this is oftentimes like this is always going to be the hurdle telling a true story, where obviously like you take your artistic licenses. I was looking up stuff. There are people being like, well, I didn't like it that it did this and it wasn't accurate about that and all. Yeah. I just assume that is true for like any based on a true story movie. So whenever I find out crazy things, I'm like, I already assumed that there were like egregious misses. But regardless, you can only diverge so far.
Mm-hmm.
There's still ultimately like you can't say that they made a 20 game winning streak if they didn't, in real life. Like that kind of departure just wouldn't fly in adapting to events. And so there are certain things that are just like this is what happens, and these are the constraints of the story you're telling, and you just kind of have to figure out, how do I take real life and like make like a 3-act narrative out of that? And I feel like you could tell, like writing this, you wish that they won the World Series just so it could have been our 3rd act, because I do kind of the two things that I'm referring to, and that I'm like I want to rewatch to figure out how much there is to this, or if it's like no that actually really works, is because it doesn't have that. Like they get to the 20 win streak, but you don't really have the game that it's ultimately that 20 win streak and that Chris Pratt hit and everything, but you don't, to me at least, feel like we've got that thing, that momentum was building towards this. It feels like the game ends, and I was like, was that like the game? Because then they're like, oh, and then they didn't actually win. I was like, oh, okay, so that was the game that's building. That was like the 3rd act kind of like climax. It felt like the movie, just by nature of like literally reality, they had to like shape something into a 3rd act, and it feels a little bit like the movie was doing its best to create something that feels satisfying and conclusive, but there was a kind of vague sense of like lack of total like story conclusion, if that makes any kind of sense. So that was one thing. That's one that I'm potentially could see fading away and just kind of accepting the whole he hit a home run and didn't see it as like that's the thing though. That's you gained respect for this new way of doing things. That's what this was all building towards. The other thing for me though is I want to rewatch and see what I think the movie is doing in terms of like his engagement with the players. Where like you've got that initial thing of like I try not to mingle with the players because I got to cut them and whatnot, and then he does end up building relationships with players as he goes on, which I thought was going to kind of like cut against the super data driven stuff. But it doesn't really, which is where I kind of go back to my like, boy, they're the villains in a different movie where like Pina is like the greatest player on their team and like a movie told from their perspective. The Yale guy who just showed up and told him like and said that he had to get fired because his numbers weren't right. Like that's the villain of his movie.
Yeah.
Is like I'm the best player you have and my numbers weren't right. That's why I got like I didn't fit into your like little data set. And so it felt like on one hand the movie was about like him being able to like be present at a game, be present with his players, and yet some of the moves that are like the triumphant Billy Bean moves are the whole cut Pino, we don't care, he's not going to be playing tonight, you know. Jeremy, he's out of here, and it's like in that scene, like that's the good thing. It's like, but I think that's ultimately why I do. There were moments where I'm like, I like the older guys because the harsh reality of this data driven thing does mean like you're cutting players. Like you're having to be like, nope, you're out. You don't fit the thing. See you later. And so having that still kind of be the standard like marching orders of like we're abiding by the data stuff. We are cutting players when need be. We're doing all of that. I wasn't really sure how that was kind of if it's meant to be connecting also with his ability to be present with the players, yet still able to cut them, yet still I don't know. I want to rewatch it and like try to get a sense for that aspect of it. Because it felt like there was something happening intentionally with him building relationships and trying to create a leader out of David and being able to be present at the game and all of that. But there was ultimately still like the data thing that did kind of reduce all of these people to numbers. Kind of the movie says it wins out in the end too. So it just
it's like finding it does feel like kind of almost a microcosm of what we're trying to do now with analytics in sports is like as the movie goes on, I think Billy is trying to, he's shifting his philosophy. He's going all in on this thing, and he says we shouldn't have to apologize for any moves we make. We shouldn't have to worry about what people think, all that stuff. But as the movie goes on, he does start to, okay, well, yes, this is all stuff we're doing, and I'm not apologizing for it. But I'm going to teach these guys why I'm going to talk about like the why behind the what here. So these guys get on board with it, because it's not going to work if the team is just like, being pushed around by my stuff here. And so I like the character arc that he has in the movie of, feeling like he has to distance himself so that he can cut people when needed, and like never watching the game in person. And, because of demons from he thinks he's a ghost, or he thinks he's a ghost. Wow. That's ridiculous. He thinks he's going to jinx the game. Superstitions, which is a huge thing in baseball. But like going from that to, an actual leader of the team, and empowering other leaders of the team, and teaching the why behind the what and why we're doing this. And then also like I'm gonna face my fears of being a jinx. It looks like we got this game in hand, and ultimately, it's at the end. It almost looks like he is a jinx, but I don't know. I think that is part of his character. I think it's part of his character arc, and it to me it's really satisfying, and I love that. And I think that there's always going to be, like, no matter how many times I watch this, and it's one of the things I love about the movie. There are times where I am like, Billy, these guys are right. What are you talking about? But there's also times where these guys are like Brad Pitt even says in the movie, he's like, what are we talking about? Like there's some of those things they're saying. So it's so stupid that this is even a part of the conversation. An ugly girlfriend means he has no confidence. Like, so, but there's times where there's these ideologies that are clashing, and I am torn between them the entire time. And at the end of the movie, I love that it doesn't resolve in. I kind of feel like if it went and they did it in a different way, where, after the big moment, the climactic moment, and then they did another game that was like the playoff game, and they gave it the full game treatment, and we were like in that game. It wasn't just a quick thing. I kind of feel like it would have been a little. I almost wonder if there was a version of the movie where there was a longer game at the end where they showed more of it. But I don't know. I kind of felt like, for pacing reasons, I kind of loved the choice of just like the slow-mo fly ball and like this, and then that voiceover talking about talking about the end of the season and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, I did like that choice. Yeah,
I think that was a great choice to kind of like, we've hit our climax. If we spend more time, I think if they would have spent more time on that game, it would have been more. Like, I love the choice that they didn't change the outcome of that game. I love that they kept it to where they lost. But I feel like if they would have kept it, I feel like if they would have done a longer game at the end and they lost, I feel like it would have just felt weird.
Well, wait, hold up. But they won that game though.
They won the game that Chris Pratt hit the home run.
Yeah, okay.
I'm talking about right after that. They're celebrating. All that's great. Yeah. But then, like, the very next
you get the voiceover.
You get the voice. You get the pop-up fly ball, and then it looks like, okay, what is going to happen? And catches it out. Game is over. Their season's over. Like, it's like super quick. But I kind of love that choice, because I feel like if we got the full game treatment on that one too, it would have just been prolonging the inevitable. And it feels like it would have been kind of a weird choice to me. But I love that. And because we still had more of the story to go, but it was about Billy. It wasn't about the A's season. It was kind of about, Billy and his journey through this, and instead of just focusing on how many games did they win at the end of the season? Did they win the and so, like, I don't know, there was something about the end where they chose to focus on Billy getting recruited by the Red Sox after the season was over, and like the big picture thought of how did we change the game, rather than just focusing on the A's and how they ended their season. I liked the choice. It felt really natural to me.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like,
I feel like it'll grow on you.
You can't probably. I think that probably will, and with the whole like him and the players thing, I don't know if I'm asking the movie to dumb it down, which I don't want to do, in terms of like, no, explicitly talk about how you're trying to reconcile like the hard data that like causes you to cut good players on a dime and blah blah blah. Reconcile that explicitly in dialogue with you also building relationships with players. It's just, it felt like there was a notable arc with him in terms of building relationships with players.
Mm-hmm.
And it also felt like the actual data, ideas, and the plot is such that you have to cut players, like, and great people are being cut for being great, but not great with the numbers you want. And a guy is not even being traded, just dropped. And this kind of like, all of this is happening. So you got like the character arc over here growing to talk to the players, and then you got like the hard data stuff right here. And I just couldn't tell if like those two things were just kind of coincidental to each other, like not really. I couldn't tell if the movie was trying to pull those ideas together into like one theme that's saying I am both aware of the fact that I just had to like that this thing I've committed to is causing us to make these hard decisions. But as a movie, I'm also aware that he's going on this arc. I couldn't tell if it was like these two things that are unaware of each other's presence and they're just kind of working separately in the film, or if there actually is like a point where they are kind of mingling, and I'm just trying to ask the movie to dumb it down and explain it to me a little bit more, which is why I also need a rewatch, because it could be that I'm just saying, no, explain that part to me more.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. I honestly can't even contribute to that because I feel like you both made really great points. I was just like listening and I was like, yeah. Oh, man.
I love this movie, y'all. It's just so good. It's hard not to be romantic about this movie.
Exactly. Yeah, I really loved it too.
You know what baseball movie is better than?
What baseball movie it is better than?
Yeah.
Field of Dreams. Field of Dreams is overrated. This is way better.
I agree, it's overrated. I still really like Field of Dreams, but it is. I think it's overrated.
You know what baseball movie it's not better than? Chicken Little.
Let him cook. Let him cook.
What? The sky is falling. The sky is falling.
That movie goes hard. First really Blu-ray I ever owned.
Was it really?
Yeah.
I just figured out what my next campaign is for us to watch. It's a baseball movie. This is the next one I'm gonna beg y'all to watch. It's not remotely like this one.
If you say Rookie of the Year.
How did you know?
I know because we disagree so hard. I am Team Sandlot and you are Team Rookie of the Year.
Dude, we have to have them fight each other. They're both great.
Dude, Sandlot goes hard.
Dude, I love Sandlot. I love Rookie of the Year so much, dude.
I know somebody who's not only like a Rookie of the Year fan, but is like firmly in the Sandlot is overrated and Rookie of the Year is way better.
Ooh. I remember there was a post. I think I might have even done. I think I might have been the one to post it. I can't remember. In the Banter Fodder group, join the group. But I posted a while back about how I think I do like Rookie of the Year better. But I guarantee you at least a third of it is nostalgia because I grew up with it, so I can quote that movie from beginning to end. But I also genuinely think it's aged so well. I think the humor is so freaking funny. And even to this day, it's like, it's one of those movies where I think if you were to watch it, you guys would not love it as much as I did, as much as I do. I promise you won't. But I do think it's one of those movies that you watch that I think was great back in the day that you can watch today and still think it has aged really well and it's genuinely a great time. I think it's so fun and so charming.
I did watch it, but many years ago. And the thing is, it's very possible that I watched it at the height of my I watch real films. Okay.
Wait, hold on. That never stopped. What are you even talking about?
Listen, no, I'm talking I love Space Jam. All right, dude. That's a real the 10 minutes of baseball in that movie is actually the best 10 minutes of any baseball movie. So
this
best golf movie ever, best basketball movie,
best sports movie ever. Let's be real.
Movie. I can't believe that wasn't even an option on our sports month.
What is Rocky?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Larry's not white. Larry's clear.
God,
I love that movie. I would love if we covered Rookie of the Year. I would love it, dude. It's so funny. I just lost a lot of points from people listening to this podcast. It's great.
It's no Chicken Little. All right.
I
No.
don't even know what that means. Like,
You've never
is
seen
there?
Chicken Little?
I have, but is there baseball in it? It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Oh
he's
yeah,
like
there's
a
baseball in it, dude. It's
a little bitty
awesome.
chick out there with a baseball bat that's like
Okay, yeah, it's been a
Dude.
long time.
Dude, the Chicken Little game was so freaking good. Genuinely underrated movie game.
oh, what an era.
Yeah.
Also, Angels in the Outfield. Very good movie.
That's fun. I do like
Haven't
that
seen that one
It's a
either.
good one. Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
I
Mr.
honestly
Lloyd.
I guess I haven't seen that many baseball movies.
Adrian Brody
one. Whoa! I gotta rewatch this.
and Matthew McConaughey. They
Does
play
Adrian
like
Brody have a
right.
5-minute
they're just
scene
players
of
that
monologuing?
hardly. Yeah, his monologue, his speech was longer than any screen time he has in this movie. Like by a long shot. But Matthew McConaughey is in it. Joseph Gordon-Levitt as a kid is in it. Danny Glover is wonderful.
Oh yeah,
The bird lady from Home Alone 2 is in it.
classic.
It's great. It's a great cast. Anyway, so Moneyball is great.
Yep.
Yes, it is great.
I think we've established. Y'all seriously, I'm so glad you liked it. I have been waiting for you guys to watch this for so long.
Yeah,
And-
I want to rewatch it. Honestly, I'll probably rewatch it like sometime relatively soon. I'd really like to
I
get
will
it.
probably be showing my dad soon.
Yes.
I really want to get it physically, honestly. I really loved it. But yeah, I can see this
I have
one
it
being
physically and digitally, actually.
nice.
Yeah.
But do you have it on DVD? No, you don't.
I don't. I have it on Blu-ray. Look at me go.
Finally.
I have a lot of stuff on Blu-ray.
So are we just doing one more sports movie?
I think so, right? We got the
yeah,
one.
it
We got.
was-
Should we say what it is?
yeah, it's Warrior. We so speaking of the group, for this month we had the group vote for one of our movies this month, and since we're doing sports themed stuff, Warrior ended up winning. So no one voted for Space Jam.
Ah,
No one
What-
voted for Chicken Little.
What sucks is I didn't even know you put up the poll. I would have put Rookie of the Year in the poll. God. I'm sure I would have gotten
man.
at least one vote.
Yeah,
been me.
yourself.
It would have been me.
Oh man.
It's good, I'm telling you.
I'm not gonna lie though. Now it's my turn to be excited for y'all to watch this because I'm telling you, this movie is so good, and like everybody, I don't know anybody who's seen it who has like not loved it. And at least just for me, it's like it's full on waterworks every time.
Oh gosh. Okay, I'm ready. I'm I'm excited too because I've always heard such good things about this.
It's so
And so
good.
to finally get to watch it, I'm really pumped.
I don't really know much about it, so gonna be jumping in. Dude, the Mighty Ducks goes hard.
Dude, I
Goes
freaking
hard.
love the Mighty Ducks. All
It's-
three of them. They're all
They're not amazing movies, but I
No, they
freaking
are
love them, dude.
I love them with my entire heart.
Yes.
They're so
I
fun.
always wanted like a Mighty's Duck
Mighty's
jersey.
Duck.
Mighty's Duck. That's how you know I'm getting tired. I've always wanted a Mighty Ducks jersey. So
Same, honestly.
yeah.
I'm also kind of in like I keep thinking about Mighty Ducks because I'm watching Daredevil and Foggy Nelson is oh god, I'm forgetting his name now. Fulton. He's Fulton in Mighty Ducks, and I love him. He was not very good yet in Mighty Ducks.
Oh man. Well, before we wrap everything up, I guess we should go ahead and give our ratings, which we're gonna start having some graphics for that. I made just a quick one today. I'll probably change it up a little bit by the next time we live stream. But
And people who are listening to just the audio version, if you go follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel, you can see these.
exactly.
And we won't tell you what they are. You have to go and look.
Yeah. You have to watch through the entire live stream up until the end to see it. All right. But yeah, here we go. I'm adding it to the stage. Boom. There's our rating.
James, this is too low.
I know.
I'm sorry.
Also,
Hey,
you know,
I've been hyping up Warrior. I have Warrior at 4 stars.
Okay.
And you know how much I love Warrior. And I just talked about how much I love Rocky 3. And I got Rocky 3 at 3.5
dude, you're a freaking
stars.
You're a 4-star warrior, honestly.
You're stingy with those stars, bro.
You gotta, dude, 5 stars gotta be that. Oh man.
That's what this is. That's what this is, bro. It's a 5-star.
Oh man. But yeah, James with the 4-star, which when I was making the graphic before I even saw your review, I already put 4 stars there because I was just expecting it. I was like, I bet it's gonna be a 4-star.
I'm being honest. I expected it as well.
Yeah. But I'm glad it's at least a 4-star. I honestly was expecting to be a 4-star, but I love this way more than I anticipated. Michael with the 5 stars, that was already apparent, and then I gave it 4.5 stars. I really love this, and I can't wait to rewatch it.
So I guess that brings the official Banter Fodder score to a 4.5.
I can deal with that.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea. I could add that to the graphic next time. Add like an average score between the 3 of us. That would be cool.
I like it.
Yeah,
I like this.
That's awesome.
I like the graphic idea, bro. Looks good.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm gonna make it a little bit better. I think there's a few things where I'm like, I can. Yeah. But I threw it together quickly today because it was super.
And I think it's a fun thing to end it with, honestly.
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, we do star ratings anyway, so
we might as well everything we talk about, we log on Letterboxd. We might as well talk about what we gave it.
Exactly. Also, maybe you could have our Letterboxd
handles.
Yeah,
that's a great idea. Amazing idea. Yeah. Rocky. Dun, dun, dun. All right. Well, so yeah, thanks for everyone who tuned in to the chat. Brian, Jack, James was in the chat at one point. Stone
was in there. Yeah.
Yep. It's good to see all y'all in the chat again. So thanks for tuning in. And for everyone else who was here who wasn't in the chat, we saw that you were here and you weren't chatting. I'm disappointed.
We'll try to forgive you.
Yeah, we'll try.
You will try.
Dun, 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 dun.
Nice. But yeah, for everyone listening into the pod feed, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel and join in on our next discussion. We do the live streams every week. Whether it's a movie review or sometimes we do what we call our movie hangs, which is just kind of, sometimes they're a little bit topical. Sometimes we're just hanging out, talking about movies and TV and random stuff happening within both of those industries. So yeah, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'd greatly appreciate it. We're 35 subscribers away from our first big milestone, which is 100 subs. So we're almost there. So thank you for everyone who has supported us all this way so far. And then, if you're in the live stream, definitely follow our Apple Podcast and Spotify channels. Give us 5 stars there. That would help us out a lot.
It would really help. Please do it. I know some of you guys in the chat, I know you haven't. we would really love it. It helps so much to support.
It really does.
To support it, to get us seen and stuff like that.
Yeah, because we're growing a lot on the YouTube channel, but we'd like to get the same kind of momentum going on the pod feeds as well. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Next week we're reviewing Warrior, which I'm excited about. I know Jim is excited about that. His favorite 4-star movie ever.
Dude, it's up there. It's so good, guys. It's so good.
I'm pretty pumped. Also, I'm in that mood of like boxing and like UFC and like wrestling kind of stuff just because of Rocky. So
We're gonna do Cinderella
a good-
Man, and then we're gonna
That's a
do
good movie,
The
too.
Fighter, and then we're gonna do.
That's a great movie.
Fighters.
Never
great.
seen it.
Oh,
And
dude,
then also
Cinderella Man's
Christian
amazing.
Bale. Christian Bale's performance in that is like literally a Mount Rushmore performance to me.
Holy frick!
He is like unbelievably amazing in that movie.
I've always really wanted to see freaking Aronofsky's what is it just called Wrestler or The Wrestler?
Oh yeah, The Wrestler.
Yeah, I've heard
Mickey
that's
Rourke.
fantastic.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. But yeah, go support your local theaters and we will see you guys next time. Bye.